First of all, to address the elephant in the room, you may have noticed that you're seeing less of me these days, and you're seeing more of objects and things. And I think the reason for that is that I don't really. I'm growing less fond of being in front of a camera, and I'm growing less fond of being visible. I'm still going to be visible, don't worry, but the problem is that with this camera phone, which, don't get me wrong, it's an amazing device to have. Who would have thought? I would have never fathomed having this device. Just maybe even like as like 10 years ago. I didn't think that maybe there were already smartphones by then, but I didn't know. I didn't know about them, and I wasn't using them. I was still on my laptop. So anyway, I don't think much good has come from the internet, getting into our pockets in the form of our smartphones. But I do like that I can take pictures of things whenever I want. I have to admit that that's something I enjoy. But the thing is, with these sorts of things, with this camera phone, I often have to be much closer in to my face than I'd like to be, and I know. I mean, I'm just more self-conscious about that, more self-aware, and so I just I often want to turn the camera away from myself and just be heard and not seen. So 2 minutes in, hopefully you've skipped that preamble, and I'm going to talk about now the subject of this video: rumors of war, wars and rumors of wars. I was watching Charles Carroll and his new show that he's doing with this other guy who's also affiliated with World Peace and $1 Million Extreme, and I like Charles. I honestly like him as a guy. I like him as a person. I've long admired Sam Hyde, and just his guts and his balls and his absence of having any kind of embarrassment about standing out from the herd and doing what he feels like doing. I don't know always when I watch Sam if he's somebody I would personally like or not. But Charles, I get the impression, is a nice guy. Is like a conscientious guy. He's on top of things. He's on the ball. He's got some kind of, to me, out there sort of ideas. And if I think they're sort of out there, that and probably most of you think I'm kind of out there, then he's got to be rather out there. But I'm not saying that to cast aspersions on him. It's just a lot of his ideas are just not. I don't know if I quite go for them, but I appreciate his willingness to be open-minded and to talk about these things, with a real sense of humility. I get that sense from Charles that I don't necessarily get from Sam, but who knows? I don't know any of these guys, and I never will know any of them in all likelihood. But that's just my impression. So Charles was talking about how the other day George W. Bush threw out the first pitch for the World Series, and it made sense in a way because it was in Texas. It was in the World Series opened in Dallas. It's the Texas Rangers against the Arizona Diamondbacks. Don't ask what happened to my Braves this year. It was quite heartbreaking, quite depressing. But anyway, enough sports ball talk. The former president came out to throw out the first pitch of Game 1 of the World Series, and I didn't really think much about it at the time. Except I was maybe a little bit surprised by the choice, but then again, it's Texas, and he's in Texas, and he's a former president, and it's the World Series, so why not? But what Charles remarked on was how after 9/11, when baseball, like a couple weeks later, after the country sort of recovered from the shock of the event, it was maybe a week and a half later, 10 or 11 days, where there was no baseball. People were just picking up the pieces, literally and figuratively, and so forth. That the first game to take place in Yankee Stadium, that George W. Bush came out, and who was then the president, of course. He came out and threw the first pitch and got a rousing ovation from all these New York fans who probably were all Democrats. But that shows you what the tenor of things was at the time. Everybody was rallying behind the president. It was us against them. It was national unity, and that actually happened for. That was actually the vibe for maybe a couple months or so. But he threw out the first pitch then, and what happened immediately afterwards, or almost immediately afterwards, soon afterwards, war. First in Afghanistan, then in Iraq. It was the start of war. It was a harbinger of war. And of course, for America and for people in New York, it was like, it was heartening to see their president come out, and even if they didn't vote for him, which most of them probably didn't, but to see him come out and throw the first pitch and just like throw it, he threw it really well. Like it didn't bounce up there. It went actually into the catcher's mitt. So and he threw a strike and then came off the field to rousing cheers and a standing ovation, and that signified the beginnings of war. And what Charles was asking is, as the war drums are beating again, this time, in a way that seems, if anything, more ominous than 22 years ago. That might this be another harbinger, of one of those. Might this be one of those things, one of those kinds of events that the evil demonic wizards who run the country and the world, they believe in orchestrating these. They believe in these kinds of events. They believe in what would be the word for it? Instantiating or manifesting things through ritual. So this ritual of the first pitch being thrown out by it's like a ritual in the game of baseball. There's always at the beginning of the game somebody throws out the first pitch, and it's usually, if it's just a regular season game, it's some local dignitary that nobody really cares about. But if it's the playoffs, and especially if it's the World Series, then often it's somebody who's a little bit more conspicuous. So to have a repeat of this event of W throwing the first pitch, prior to perhaps war. Well, I mean, war is already breaking out, but the question is it going to go, is it going to go whole hog, or are troops going to start to be committed to places around the world? I mean, I know that already some already have been, but is it going to be, are we going to see a large deployment of troops? And is there going to be an escalation of where things are right now? It's in the air, it's in the water, it's something that people are talking about. It's hard to ignore, and you wouldn't want to ignore it. And another aspect of this what's taking place, I think, is I've heard little whisperings here and there. Nothing like on an official level, no, but I've heard. We all know that military recruitment is way down, and that's because I mean, I'm speculating here, but I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that it's because that the sort of people who would ordinarily feel inclined to join up are thinking to themselves, why should I do that? My country hates me. I'm a straight white male, or I'm a straight black male. The Army's only into trannies and feminists and, this, woke social experimentation. A straight anything male. It doesn't have to be white, although white is the backbone of the backbone of the vast majority of the population is still white. So, and the backbone of the military has always been white, even in recent years. And so it's normally been, the enthusiasm, the patriotic enthusiasm of people from, maybe humbler backgrounds, but who live and breathe the stars and stripes, and like the what in the early aughts was like the Toby Keith brand of of patriotism, brought to you courtesy of the red, white, and blue. But the problem is that now nobody's feeling that, the movement, the popular sentiment is against getting involved. Isolation, what used to be called isolationism, or what still gets called isolationism. I don't use that term because it's a derisive term. It's as I've covered in a prior video, it's a term, that contains within it a bias, because it's saying that somebody who is quite reasonable, who wants to avoid entangling alliances, as George Washington put it, is somehow irrationally prone to wanting to keep to himself, whereas it's it should be America first. That should be the mentality of the government. If the government is at least even pretending to care about its citizenry, they ought to not go to war except as a last result, or as a last resort, I should say. And I would argue that that doesn't really account for. I mean, that really doesn't apply to much of anything other than being invaded, uh, or being attacked. Although that of course raises the specter of what if they did another 9/11? But I've and maybe would that have the desired effect of getting people to say, well, we can't be, like they were saying after 9/11. Well, we can't be apart from this anymore. We need to play our role on the world stage, and all the neocon rhetoric that followed. And that was a recruitment tool, and it worked. It was probably very cynically deployed in every way, and probably artificially deployed in every way, starting on 9/11 itself, the event of 9/11 itself. But I won't get too deep into that right now. I've expressed my thoughts on all of that elsewhere. But today, again, as I was starting to say, there are whisperings, little whispers about, because recruitment is way, way down, would they possibly bring back the draft? Now, this is a very disturbing idea. For me personally, having a son who's turning 18, it's a very, very disturbing idea. And the thought of them doing that just makes, I see red when I think of that whole notion that they would try to grab up people, young men like my son and others like him, to you. I mean, that my son's not cannon fodder for your damn war. I get kind of caught up in the emotion of it, just thinking about it, because it's personal. And that's why I think it's not to be optimistic. God forbid that we should be optimistic about anything. Because that just means you're a blue-pilled Cooper. But my thoughts are that if they tried to bring back the draft in the current climate, that might be that might be what really kicks off a real resistance movement. Just because then it will be personal. It will be personal for young men, and everybody who cares about them, their families. And I just don't think there's enough of a will right now, of anyone to say, well, it's necessary for our boys to be sent out there onto the battlefields of Ukraine, or the battlefields of Taiwan, or the battlefields of, Gaza, or wherever the hell else, some far-flung place that's really got absolutely nothing to do with our country. But it's something that our so-called leaders, I don't call them our leaders at all. I call them our rulers, and they, for me anyway, they are unwittingly on my part, my rulers. They rule over me only because of superior force, not because I recognize the legitimacy of their rule. But I think there's an understanding that they really couldn't bring back the draft. um, to try to fill up all of these spots that have been vacated, to try to swell the ranks of the military. Again, unless they try another 9/11-esque sort of event, but as I was saying about Hamas's attack on Israel, that to me is very suspicious. And not just to me, to many others, is very suspicious. That the Israeli defense forces, and that the Israeli intelligence, highly sophisticated intelligence, that they were totally caught with their pants down, and people, just civilians were exposed to horrific attack and torture and all the other terrible things that supposedly happened. Again, okay, asterisk. This is just what we're told happened. Okay, so I'm aware of that, and that's something that I know Charles would say, like, what do we know is really real? And maybe none of it's real. Maybe all of it's just a story, where like a movie that we're being shown and being told that it's real. But given that it is real, and I'm inclined to think that it is, it raises the question: how in the world did a country like Israel leave their borders undefended for hours on end, and let so many of their citizenry get slaughtered, unless they wanted it, unless it was all part of the plan. And I've talked about all this before in prior videos, so I don't want to get too bogged down with any further discussion of it here. You can listen to my prior videos if you haven't yet, if you find, if it interests you to do so. But so what happened in Israel, I think that there's already people who are saying, no way, you guys are lying to us. You obviously don't care about your own citizens. If it's in your interest to let hundreds or thousands of your own citizens die, because it benefits your agenda. It helps you to do what you want to do, which in this case is for the Israeli army is to just bomb Gaza into smithereens and just expand there, and maybe hopefully hopefully from their point of view finally just expel the Palestinians from Gaza and from the West Bank and wherever else they are. So, and just eliminate the possibility of there being a two-state solution, or any kind of reasoned solution, any kind of compromise solution that would create, or that would be the result of peace and cooperation. So my point is, there are already people doubting what has been called Israel's 9/11. But believe me, again, I know news didn't travel as fast. A couple of you had said this to me, that there were actually 9/11 doubters of the official story, like in just mere weeks that followed. And I'm sure there were some, but I can tell you, as a relative normie at the time, I did not hear from these kinds of people at all, from any, not for not for months, maybe not for years. I don't know when I first started to hear 9/11 is an inside job being preached or promoted or pushed. I came very late to the party on that, and when I first heard these notions, I didn't believe them. But they intrigued me more and more as the years went by, and eventually I was on board. But it took a while to open my eyes, to red pill me, as you might like to say. Some of you might like to say on the matter. But today, I think that would not happen. I mean, that if something similar happened today, if there was another 9/11-esque event, I think there would be doubts from the jump, from the get-go. There'd be people saying, "No way, this was fake. You're just trying to get us into war. Screw you, and your fake fucking stories and your inside job, and that you've orchestrated to advance your inhuman agenda. Screw all of you. I'm having no part in this." That's how people would react today. That's not how people reacted in September of 2001, because people generally weren't as cynical about their government. They were cynical, but not like that. They were cynical in the sense of, oh well, they're all corrupt, or they're all incompetent, but not corrupt to that extent, not willing to let hundreds or thousands of the people that they're supposed to be that they're enjoined to protect and defend, to let thousands of them die to get their war. But today, there's not much good that one can say about living today. It's pretty shit. Things can definitely get worse. Don't get me wrong, but there's been a huge, vast decline in culture and in just about every measurable way. The only thing that's better about today than the past is, in the past, people trusted their government, trusted their leaders, trusted leaders of industry, trusted leaders of government, and trusted the president, trusted the media. I mean, really, honestly, it's kind of quaint to think this way, but if you go around, if it was 1953 and you went around and took a poll, do you trust the media? Do you trust the government? Do you trust the president? The vast majority of Americans would say yes, of course we do. Why shouldn't we? And they shouldn't have back then. They shouldn't have, but they did. Now, culture was so much better in so many ways, but that's one thing that's better today than it was back then, is that more people's eyes are opened. So that's going to be a real problem with this. If their goal is initiating us into World War III, that's going to be a big problem for them. And so I don't see the draft happening. Although, the very possibility of it is just so, I just don't want, I shouldn't get into it right now. It's certainly enraging. The very idea of it is enraging. to me. But I don't think, I think they know that they're running on fumes right now. They don't have a lot of credibility in most people's eyes, or in a lot of people's, in enough people's eyes. I mean, there's still plenty of people out there who are totally credulous and still believe what they're told by the TV and by by the Washington Post or whoever else. But there's much more incredulity. There's much more skepticism. There's much more cynicism, and there's much greater degree of it. It's not. It's like the cynicism that was around in 2001 was just, oh well, our leaders are mostly venial, mostly largely corrupt, and just incompetent boobs for the most part. But not that they were, bad through and through, evil through and through. And now that's much more the vibe that is being that's out there, that people are believing. So that's going to be a problem if now's the time where they're gonna try to start World War III. I see massive resistance. Whatever they try. I don't see an appetite for this kind of thing. I don't see people feeling rah-rah, feeling like, yeah, let's kick the world's ass. Yeah, let's show them what America's all about. There is not that kind of feeling out there. Except among the except among the elites, the neocons and neolibs. They're the only ones who are being rah-rah. Let's make the world safe for whatever. Wouldn't be democracy, whatever they would say. Let's make the world safe for Drag Queen Story Hour. Yeah, there we go. That's going to win broad support. That's going to get a lot of people to want to join in the effort. Let's export Drag Queen Story Hour to the Middle East. Let's export transing kids, giving kids sex hormones. Let's export that to the rest of the world. That sounds great. We're so much better than Russia. We're so morally superior to Russia and China and Iran. The new triune, what is it, axis of evil. I just don't think that's going to fly. But on the other hand, they're trying to make it happen, and Bush throwing out the first pitch is like as Charles said, it's a portent of something. So it's something we should keep our eyes on, definitely, without getting bogged down in it, without getting black-pilled about it, going so deep into it that, or into all of what's wrong about it, and all of what's evil about what's happening right now, that we just lose our minds, and just throw our hands up in despair and hang ourselves. That's not something you want to do. Don't do that. Think good thoughts. Find a way to think good thoughts and to focus on good things in your life, because they are there. So, kind of a rambling, long video, but if anybody's got anything to add, leave your comments below. Thanks for watching.